Good evening. My name is Dr. Susan Feneck. I am CEO and founder of Juvenile Justice Impact. And tonight we have the pleasure of having Dain Szafranski with us, who is the head marshal for the Boulder City. And he was discussing with me previously some of the social issues in family court that he's experienced. And I'm just excited to have you on and hear what you have to say, and hopefully our listeners can learn a lot from your experiences. So thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
So tell me, what does it mean to be a head marshal?
So Boulder City, we have a smaller court system, smaller city, just being outside of Las Vegas, but we deal with pretty much all the same issues, and my job is to be in charge of the court services, making sure that the other marshals in the court is operating smoothly and safely. Also, I'm in charge of warrant services, making sure, again, that if somebody has a warrant for any reason that's generally misdemeanor, we go out and try to serve those and get them to come take care of their situation with the court. And finally, we deal with alternative sentencing, which is kind of like a informal probation generally given to misdemeanor people as a way to maybe work through their problems instead of just having to pay for them.
Really? No, that makes perfect sense. I mean, I've heard some of the other companies that I've been affiliated with and communicated with, they've talked about having other alternative ways to help these people, whether they're youth incarcerated in secure or non-secure facilities, or even adults like in which you're speaking of, and it gives that people more resources to get the help that they need instead of being behind bars.
Yeah, our court, specifically our judge, and I'm a firm believer of this as well, is much more into therapy and being able to give back, giving people their voice, letting them talk, letting them have a say and kind of work through things, and realizing the way the judge says it the most is, I could put him in jail all day long, but there's no therapy there. So he tries to do whatever he can to keep people out of there, and so we try to help along in that same kind of mindset, as long as, I guess, community safety issues aren't being breached. So, or personal safety issues.
Sure. No, that sounds like some great progress. I mean, for a judge to be thinking along those lines definitely sounds like, and he's also giving back to the community, right? Because if someone's not locked up, then they have a chance to get the services they need, the therapy they need, the rehabilitative services they need, without being away from their family.
Right. One of the ways he looks at it, and when I say he, it's generally me too. But the way we kind of look at it in our court is that we can put somebody in jail. If they come in because they got a DUI, and the goal is to go, maybe it's your second DUI or more, and we're looking at it and going, well, we can keep you sober by just putting you in jail for 90 days, but then you get out with the same problems you went in.
Exactly.
So how do we break the cycle? How do we change those patterns so that you don't just, the alcoholism or the drug use or the whatever it is ends today instead of a continued progression of problems?
That sounds very progressive, and I'm just so happy to hear that there's these type of programs available for the public. And what would you say some of the, I know you said that you weren't directly involved with the juvenile courts, but have you seen that juvenile court bleeds into the adult system?
100%. And we see that. So Boulder City and the rural courts have a justice court system that does and handles the preliminary cases for juveniles. And it's not just Boulder City juveniles. It's Boulder City, Laughlin, and Good Springs area. So if a juvenile's caught doing any kind of gross misdemeanor or felony act in those states, and they get put on probation, then they report once a month to our court, where the judge has private hearings, not open to the public, and they're brought in with an attorney for them, an attorney for the state, parole and probation, and our judge, again, very, very understanding and hearing, tries to give every chance and opportunity for them to work through their system and not end up back in it. So,
and that's what's called as the recidivism, right? Is when you have the cycle of the youth or adults that commit a crime, regardless of how small or how big, they go through this process of going through their different programs, whether they're internal or external, and then they come out. And what this judge is doing, it sounds to me like he's trying to reduce the recidivism rate where they keep coming back again and again with the same problem. It sounds like he's very proactive, and sounds like he's very successful in what he's doing and trying to actually treat the problem instead of lock the problem up.
Well, we've been very beneficial here because Judge Miller, who is the single judge here in Boulder City for Justice Court and Municipal Court, and he's the longest acting judge in the state of Nevada. Been a judge since the late 80s, I believe. But that's a benefit to us because he's seen these people. He's seen how long some of them have been running in the system instead of many judges who, you know, they get in and they get elected, and so they're all new faces to them, you know. In many cases, I'll hear him say, you know, I used to deal with his father all the time.
Oh, my goodness.
And then his father kind of cleaned up his act, and now here's son, you know. And about 10 years ago-ish, Judge Miller decided that he really wanted to bring a drug court to Boulder City. But Boulder City, kind of small town, initially it was more like, well, we don't want a drug court here because then we have a problem, you know. And it took a while for them to realize, well, I guess we have a problem, so maybe we should get behind this. And that actually came from community support from the Rotary and them stepping up to try to fund the court initially themselves. So when that came through, Judge Miller was able to kind of establish, okay, this is what I want to do. I want to keep people out of jail. There are some people in here who I've seen this guy 15 different times over the last 10 years. And it's time that we stop seeing this guy anymore. So we'll get him into the program. We'll start working that cycle. That's actually why they brought me in, because at the time, 7 years ago, I was working at parole and probation. And I had experience that I built in that exact area, but I had moved to this city and started off originally here. So I also knew the city. I think that kind of all played a role in them saying, hey, you know, let's bring this guy in because he knows how to set up those kind of systems to help them. And over time, we've learned from our mistakes, and we still will take anybody into our court. But for our drug court specific, and by drug court, I guess it's more of a recovery court, because it's not just drugs. It can be any kind of substance abuse that usually leads to recidivism and crime. But by doing that, we've actually really narrowed in on bringing in a lot of young people who maybe have been coming for small citations since they were 16, 17, and now they're in the adult courts, and we're going, okay, we've been seeing you for a couple of years now, and you're only 21, and let's try to stop this before you're 41, you know. So that is where a large part of our focus is.
No, that sounds incredible. You're trying to break this. You're not trying to break the cycle. You are breaking this cycle collaboratively. And how long have you been in this position?
Well, I've been here specifically for 7 years, or just under 7 years, and then I did parole and probation for 3, and then I worked for the police department here for 2 before that. So total of like 11 years. And
how did you get involved in being? How did you get involved in what made you initially become involved in the system?
That is a good question. So, I started out when I was young. By young, I mean early 20s. I kind of started a construction company, and it was early 2000s. And I went on a couple ride-alongs with a family member who was a police officer and was trying to decide between the two kind of departments of work, which one I wanted to do more. And, you know, if you remember the early 2000s in Las Vegas, I mean, there was so much work. It was just unbelievable. And I'd never seen a recession. I never knew nothing about that. I just looked like, wow, this is great to be an adult. So I'm just going to jump into this, you know. And started working hard at that. 2006 and 7 came along. Pretty much lost everything. And like I said, I'd already explored law enforcement in general and was like, well, maybe I need to be more realistic and not just kind of shoot for the stars, but work in the other areas that I know that I enjoy and try to help out where I can. So I went through the police academy and got a job in Boulder City as a police officer. And initially, like I'd say most young cops, you know, you want to catch all the bad guys and do all the fun stuff. And that I was kind of typical in that sense. And I went ahead and did that for 2 years. And then one of my friends tried to convince me over and over again to come to parole and probation. And I was like, I don't know. That's not really my style. It's a lot of paperwork. But, you know, the recession was still in full swing back then, and jobs were not easy to come by, so I finally just took the opportunity and went. And after doing that for even just a short time, it was very apparent to me. I like helping these people get off of the ground and back on their feet more than I like helping, you know, pull a cat out of a tree kind of thing.
Right.
So I think I can make a bigger impact here, and generally the people I deal with seem to like me because I try to be personable and I try to talk to them like an adult, like they would want to be talked to, and it's just kind of worked out for us both ways. So
now I think that's incredible, especially in this field. You definitely have to be approachable, understandable, non-judgmental, and understand that we all can fall in a moment's notice.
Sure.
You know.
No, I agree with that 100%. That was something that I think parole and probation taught me. I specifically worked in the sex offender unit there. And, you know, you read their stories and it was some of the most heinous crimes you can commit. But then you talk to them and I realize, you know what, not all of you guys are really bad guys. Some of you guys are actually really good guys who just made an absolutely horrible mistake, you know? Or
were at the wrong place at the wrong time.
Right. And found yourself in a situation that you couldn't stop it or whatever, you know, it just got out of hand and here you are in some level, though, you know? And so I kind of found that those people, I guess, need opportunities too, and I wanted to make sure that they could get it. So
that is incredible. Congratulations on your success. Seriously, that's just awesome. I mean, and so many people are always going to remember and be inspired by you and all that you've done, how you cared for them, how you genuinely cared for them. You know, not just being a 9-to-5, or what they used to say is do the 8 and hit the gate. And you know, I've heard that quite often in my past when I was exposed to these different facilities, and that was kind of the mentality. And you know, knowing someone like yourself really making a difference, having an impact, caring, and that's what a lot of these people really need, is someone to actually listen.
Well, I agree with that, and that's important. Even at every level. I'm in law school now. A couple of years ago, I decided I got to go back and finish all the things that Actually, I'll give you this story because it's kind of interesting. It comes from talking to one of my recovery court people sitting in my office. He was 20 or 19 at the time. And I was trying to explain to him, hey, if you want things in life, you got to go get them. And you can't just go, hey, what's the easiest path? Because that doesn't always work. And so if you think, I got to go to school, then sometimes you got to just buckle down and go to school. That's just the way it's going to be. And if sometimes you're thinking, I've got to get into this trade and I'm going to have to do a full apprenticeship, then sometimes that's what you got to do. Mm-hmm. And if it's going to take you 6 months to buy the tools, that's what it is. You don't just go steal to get the tool. It's not about the easy path. Sometimes in real life, we just have to take the hard path. And, he understood, and we talked about different things that he could do and try to push himself through to that next level. And then he left my office, and I remember sitting in my office right afterwards and going, do you know how good you would be if you actually took your own advice? And I thought,
isn't that something?
Yeah, and thought, there are things that you want to do, but you're not doing because it's hard. And there are areas that you can be even better at your job and better in the system, but you're not doing because they're hard, including going back, finishing school, then trying to get into law school and complete that while being a single dad and 40 years old, working a full-time job that, as a boss, is salary, so I'm working pretty much whenever the phone rings, And just decided, no, I'm doing it. I'm going for it. So a couple of years, I kind of jumped back in and finished my degree, and now I am halfway through law school.
Oh, my, congratulations. I know it's not easy.
No, this is the worst decision I ever made in my life, but for the better. For the better.
And once you get involved, you're like, there's no turning back, because you have the capability of doing it.
Right. And I was telling the judge the other day, one of the main focuses of my practice, if I ever leave and just go practice law, is to listen to the clients. I know it's so hard because you want to get in there and just kind of push through, but if you just let them talk, even if you know it's not what's best for them and you kind of push in the direction that is really what is best for them, just letting them talk and letting them be heard will make a huge difference in how they will view their case. And if they view their case as something that was on their side and working for them, they're more likely to work their case.
Most definitely.
And so you're going to get very, 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 very high responses out of that. And, like I said, one aspect of it is law enforcement, the next aspect is lawyers, another aspect is the judge, and third or final aspect is how the court system or the correction system deals with them. So, but each one of them plays a role. So
they sure do. What would you say some of the pros and cons are? The progression have you seen over the past, let's say, 11 years in the system? Like you were telling me earlier, you agreed that a lot of the youth bleed into the adult system. What were some of the examples, and what do you think could change that? Or what would it take to at least decrease the amount of youth that go into the adults, that just wind up in the adult system?
I'll just give you my opinion about my experience here in Boulder City, which is a smaller micro version of maybe the bigger Greater Valley and then the greater system problem, But one of the things that I kind of noticed is Boulder City has a pretty high rated school system here. And I was noticing when I bring all my people in initially and I do these interviews with them, specifically my young people, 2 questions I always ask them: do you smoke? And the answer is almost always yes. Second question I always ask, because to me it's just a marker because they're always the same, is do you have a high school diploma? And it's almost always no, even though they were born and raised here in Boulder City. And I thought that was kind of interesting, so I was looking into that a little bit, talking to some of the people at the school, and the school knows all of what I'm going to call my problem people, but they're not really problems. They're just in the wrong place at the wrong time, maybe with the wrong people, and it's causing problems,
Mm-hmm.
But I kind of realized that the school doesn't want to deal with their problems. So they just toss them out. And they create a system that does not make it effective for them to graduate or to be part of it. And some of those are, self-inflicted issues, meaning that the child is not helping that scenario, But they've just gotten to an easier way of going, it's easier if they're just not here. Then we can work on the kids who want to be here instead. But what they don't understand is when you do that, you are almost setting them up for failure right off the bat. And now I have to address them. Now they will be in my system, and I will be addressing them. And you're just pushing the buck on to the next place, though.
Well, what do you mean toss them out?
Well, they'll put them in opportunity school, which in Boulder City, these kids don't have a ride to. They don't have a way to get all the way deep into the valley to be able to take care of that.
What kind of school is that again?
Or they'll full on expel them.
What kind of school did you say that was?
Well, I don't know what it's called today. When I was in school in the 80s and 90s, it was called opportunity school.
Oh, okay.
I'm not sure what they call it today, but it's basically, hey, we found that you're not suitable or you're a danger to our students, so we've taken you out of this public school, which you were zoned for, and you need to go to one of these inner city schools that are kind of designed for, I guess, problem people or problem kids.
And they're actively doing that right now?
High dropout rates, really.
And this is actively happening right now?
Yeah, it happens all the time. I don't know. Again, I don't have the terms, so don't quote me on what they call the school or any of that stuff. But if, let's say you get in a fight here at the school, they may keep you, they may not. They may just go, nope, you're going to have to enroll into what I'm going to call opportunity school again, because that's what it was called back in the 90s. But it would be an inner city school that you'd have to find your own ride to from parents who are not as necessarily supportive, and generally it results in high dropout rates.
It sounds like a setup for failure, quite honestly, but...
Right. Because all it is an avoidance of the problem.
Sure.
And I'm not saying that every problem can be solved easily and that the school district can solve every problem. But I'm saying that there are probably some problems that could be resolved, and for whatever reason, it's not happening, and then they end up in my system. Now it's my turn. So.
It sounds like there's a lack of hope for the.
Yeah, I would say so.
So it's like, hey, you know what? You're too much to deal with, and we're just gonna. We know we have this opportunity to toss you over to this other school, but just like you said, if the parents aren't as involved as a high-functioning family, let's just say, they don't have the wherewithal, they don't have the money, they don't have the means, they don't have the transportation, they don't have the money even for a bus, how are they even going to get there? And their incentive is just deflates, it sounds like.
And Boulder City is also home of St. Jude's Ranch. So some of those kids are St. Jude's kids. And clearly we know they don't have a support system. They have a government support system. It's not the same. So.
In a perfect world, what would you do to change that?
Oh, you know what? I don't think it would even be appropriate for me to guess on that, because I actually don't know all the full issues, and then I don't want to say something that they are doing and make it look like,
Right.
they're doing something wrong that I actually don't know about, because I don't have all the inner workings of how the school district works here. But I would like to see, in general, them try to have more of a liaison approach to addressing and helping each one of these kids individually. Because if you don't, they are just going to become your future problems. So how do we stop that now? How do we give them that hope now? How do we eliminate that social strain now and figure out how they view and identify the world, so that we can kind of make adjustments as they're growing?
Well, sure. So as they're maturing, as they're learning, as they're trying to figure out how they're going to become successful, they're also learning how they can become successful in a program that they otherwise might have not even known about.
Right. A program, or just so they comprehend how life actually works too, and kind of how society has accepted, social contracts in a sense, and how they can fit into those compared to just giving up on them and or trying to create their own.
Sure. Do you feel that mental health plays a big role in a lot of these decisions that are being made?
Yes, I feel that probably some of the biggest factors are mental health, substance abuse, even at young ages, and probably even cognitive ability. Just their ability to comprehend everything.
Well, I know that a lot of youth that are in stressful situations or have trauma or have discord in the family at home or being raised by some other person that it's just not like a typical family home where, and I don't mean to say typical, but where it's functioning, you go home, you have dinner, you do your homework, dad comes home and mom comes home, or stepmom or stepdad, and there's a sense of belongingness, I guess is the word I was looking for. And some of these people don't have that. So their inspiration isn't as high as it would be someone who's like in an underserved family or an at-risk youth and at-risk family. And it makes it, then they have the struggles that they face are 10 times higher than someone even like saying in a functional family.
Well, I think that's the problem with society too, and I think this is what's hopeful about some of the programs that are out there, whether in the court or even with the government, that some people are understanding that what you view, by you I mean us,
the public, right?
Middle class, no problems, or typical problems, I guess I would say, what we view as accomplishable goals does not mean that every person sees those same tasks in those same ways,
100%.
I could tell you that you need to take responsibility, but when you don't really grasp what responsibility means, first of all, and the list of things that you would picture to be responsibility looks too big, what do? You give up.
Exactly.
You're done. I'm done with that. I'll either change the definition of responsibility in my head and act accordingly, or I'll just give up on it totally and just do whatever I'm going to do. So.
And it's really hard to keep inspiring someone who has that mindset, but thankfully you're helping these people and these youth and these adults with those challenges, which they would see as a complete firewall, a complete brick wall, and that they can't even jump over. It's just, they have the sense of hopelessness or helplessness, or their drive or their inspiration is just completely non-existent because, like you just said, what I might think is a goal is completely different from what you think is, from what anyone else might think. And
Sure.
the threshold of that threshold of drive, and when you say threshold of drive, that the perseverance that you might have is going to be different from so many other people's, and a lot of it is learned behavior. And some of these people, they might come from, having role models in their life, whether it is a parent or a friend or a guardian or anyone who is a true mentor in their life. They might be like, you know what, that's not I think I can handle that goal. Where someone who doesn't have those kind of role models just doesn't have the toolbox to even think about how they might even have the same inspiration or the same belief in themselves to do such a thing.
I agree. I mean, the ladder length is not the same for everybody. There's not really even a debate about that. So when you tell the average person, hey, just keep moving up, and they kind of look up, they got to go 8 feet. And then you tell maybe somebody from the inner city, or somebody who's really kind of doesn't have any of those support systems, like you said, you got to keep moving up, and they look up, and it's 48 feet, and they go, oh, now I'll just stay down here, So, there's big problems there, and in our system, we use a whole team. It's not just me. There's the judge, there's the prosecutor, defense attorney. We have a licensed psychologist, yes, who does individual and group counseling with them. We have a social worker who actually came from the Nevada juvenile system, who just kind of helps them establish kind of ways through normal life scenarios. They have us, being the marshals, who we trust but verify that they're on the right path, and we're willing to get down there with them and help pick them up if they have problems,
Yeah, it sounds like you guys have a great team.
And I think some of the biggest surprises, they expect the judge to be nice. They expect the counselors to listen to them. But you'd be shocked when they graduate. They'll spend half their time, when we give them a chance to say a few words, spending half their time going, when I first got in here, everybody told me the marshals, and specifically Dain, but the marshals say, they're here for you when you need it. And I said, oh, okay, yeah, I'm sure, I ain't telling them nothing, And I can tell you now, after being here for over a year, that, yep, they're here for you. They're part of the reason of the success, And it's not because we did anything more special as much as we come from a place that they didn't expect, They don't expect the support there, but that's the thing. We need to be support at all levels, and so we choose to be that way with my department. So.
I was just saying earlier, I mean, it sounds like you have a great team, a great department. You all understand what each other's role is, and how also to work together in your different roles to help each individual, which is our society. It's our community. It's our backyard. It's the people who we see all of the time, whether it be in a store or someone might know someone, or a friend of a friend, or a family member, and it's just the fact that they go someplace, and I'm sure in their mind they're thinking they're going to go down a certain path because it's the justice system, and then they get to know someone like yourself and the judge, and this is just so incredible. And it sounds like a huge success of what you guys have chosen to put together, and how you've chosen to be different, and how you've chosen to really interact with these people and make a difference.
Sure. Yeah, we're trying to do our part here. I mean, we're not perfect, everybody else, but
I would say you are doing your part. Because you said we're trying to do our part. It sounds like from everything that you've told me, you've made a huge difference in so many people's life. You're obviously impacting our entire community, because it is our community when those people get out, right? And they're part of our community, and who we support and who we want to make a difference with together, regardless of age, race, socioeconomic background. No matter what it is, it's a person who needs help and support, and that's what you're doing. you're giving them the support and the help that they need.
Well, I try to tell them all that they're human beings. I've had them come in, they test positive for some substance, and they start crying to me, and I'll say, "Why are you crying? What's the problem right now?" And they'll say, "I'm just a big F up," and I'll look at them and go, "Hey, you're not an F up. You're a human being. And as a human being, you deserve the best. You deserve the best parents. You deserve the best job. You deserve the best, wife or spouse or husband or whatever it is. You deserve the best children. You deserve always the best because you are a human. The problem is the other side also deserves the best. So how do we get you to be the equivalent of that? Yeah, you made a mistake. No big deal. You still deserve the best. So let's pick ourselves up and be the best for everybody else, too. We got this." And they usually will see it pretty quick.
And that's incredible. When you're sitting in front of a person, especially in that environment, and they hear someone like yourself who is so inspiring, so dedicated, so true and genuine, their eyes just, I'm sure, light up and are like, thinking, wait a minute, is this guy for real? Because
yeah.
I'm sure if they have been circling through the system for as many years as you've been speaking of, they've met, I'm sure, a handful of people that have not been as true and genuine and loyal and dedicated and inspiring as yourself. So when you say something like that and you actually mean it, I'm sure there's been countless of times that you've seen a look on their face like, this guy's going to be, change my life. And you actively do that. Your whole team.
Yeah. The unfortunate part is that we're not in it forever.
Right.
Some fall back, some don't, some pick up and go. But there's a lot who actually stay active. They graduate or commence from we don't like to use graduate because it's not over. They're still working through life,
Sure.
So they commence from our program, and we have quite a few. It's been years, and they're still showing up randomly on Tuesday nights just to support the others.
That's incredible. That really is.
So, it's not the high percentage that are that involved, but there are a percentage who are involved that high. And even the other percentage still in general has made different changes that have been lasting for years. And then obviously there's some who, slip all the way back, but that's okay because relapse is part of their program of recovery. So we'll just work through it again when they're ready.
And the people that come back and want to support those in need from a space that perhaps they have commenced from, as you said, they then feel even better about themselves for giving back to someone like yourself who helped that person who's helping now a person in need.
Yeah, I agree. It's a circle that we want them to be in. This is not the cycle we want them to break. We want them to be in this cycle,
Mm-hmm.
So.
Well, this has been truly inspiring and motivating, and I really wasn't entirely knowledgeable of the Boulder City court system, and having now met you and knowing these wonderful things that you're doing for the community, and that's something that Juvenile Justice Impact wants to recognize are the people in our community that are making a difference in a big way, like yourself, and collectively your whole department and your whole court and so many people. I'm so glad we had you tonight as a guest, so people can be, because people always hear the negative side of everything that's going on in the court system, and they hear different laws that have been passed and have not been effective, then this and this and that, and here you are, you're coming together as a team in Boulder City, and you're making a difference. You have clients even coming back to inspire the clients in need. You're just a true inspiration and the utmost role model that it's just incredible to know you and to be speaking with you and to knowing that you have such a strong team.
Well, I'm just fortunately a product of my own system too, so I've just been blessed enough to be in the right system. So,
and that's all it takes. for us, for us to say something like that, and for you to recognize that is just incredible. And is there anything else that you would like the community to know about all of the other great work that you guys are doing?
No, if they want to come out and learn more at any time, they can stop by and ask for me. I'm out right now, but I have no problem talking to anybody when they, if they need it or have questions. And if somebody hears this who happens to be in need, and if it's something I can point them in the right direction, I would do that too. So,
would you be able to give them contact information? So someone who's listening to this, being like, "Wow, I could really use these services," or they might know someone who needs these services. What can you tell us some of that information? Is there a website or a phone number or even a location?
There is. Again, the courthouse in Boulder City is just one building. That's where we work out of. And that's in Boulder City, just at 501 Avenue G. Again, you could just Google Boulder City Courthouse, Nevada, and it would come up. The phone number is on that site, too, and you just want to ask for me.
Okay.
And I don't have a problem. At least, if I can help, I will definitely point the direction or jump in firsthand. But, it's a big world out there, so I can only do what I can do. So.
And you're doing an excellent job, and I'm getting the feeling that your phone is going to be ringing a little bit more than average. Because you're such a true and genuine person, and true to your heart about what you're doing and how you're doing it and why you're doing it. And I just would love to come out and see it. I wasn't aware that there was. So that is the court system. There's one court system in Boulder City.
Yep, it's got a couple different types of courts. There's a justice court and a municipal court and a couple different things like that. But it's one courthouse, one court building,
right.
one
Okay.
courtroom.
I see.
One judge that we work under. So
nice. Well, he sounds like he's definitely dedicated to what he's meant to be here for, and that is to help people and not give up on them and find solutions and not just, as you say, toss them out. And this has been incredible. My name is Dr. Susan Feneck. I can be reached at juvenilejusticeimpact@gmail.com, or you can see the website at www.impactjji.com. And this has been such a pleasure and honor to be speaking with you, Dain. Thank you so much. I feel inspired by you, and I'm sure all the listeners are very inspired by you, and they learned a lot from you. And that's kind of our duty is to give back to our community, and that's exactly what you're doing. And we're all thankful and grateful for someone like yourself, and keep up the incredibly amazing work. And maybe what we could do is, we can revisit again sometime and have you on as a guest. I love speaking with you and learning more about what you're doing and your team over there in Boulder City. And we're just thankful and grateful to thank you for your time. I really appreciate it.
Well, thanks for having me.
All righty. Well, thank you so much, and we will be in touch. Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Hey, Dain.